When I first moved into the apartment, I wasn't expecting much. It was just another stop in the long string of places I'd called home over the past few years. Rent was fair, the location convenient, and the only thing left to figure out was the person I'd be sharing the space with. His name was Daniel. Daniel struck me as the kind of man who made life look easy. Broad-shouldered, perpetually casual in his faded t-shirts, and always wearing a half-smile that made him seem both approachable and untouchable at the same time. He was straight, or so he made sure to tell me the night I signed the lease. "Just so you know, man, I'm cool with anyone, but I'm not into guys." He laughed when he said it, lighthearted, almost teasing, but I heard the edge in his voice. I assured him I wasn't looking to complicate things. At first, our lives unfolded in a rhythm that felt natural. We split groceries, argued over which streaming service to keep, and learned the small quirks that made cohabitation bearable. Daniel left his sneakers by the couch no matter how many times I moved in the rack. I was guilty of leaving mugs in the sink until they formed a small army. We teased each other about it, and laughter became part of the walls we built around ourselves. What unsettled me, though, were the moments when laughter lingered too long or when his eyes held mine just a second more than necessary. Daniel had this way of bridging the distance between us without realizing it, or maybe realizing it and pretending not to. He'd nudge my shoulder while passing behind me in the kitchen, brush against my arm during movie nights, or sit too close on the couch when there was plenty of space elsewhere. I told myself not to overthink it. Straight guys could be tactile, friendly, careless. But something in me kept cataloging every gesture, every slip of contact, every smirk that felt too deliberate. At night, lying in my bed, I replayed those moments, wondering if I was inventing desire where there was none. One evening, the electricity cut out during a storm. With the apartment dark and the rain hammering against the windows, Daniel and I lit candles and sat on the floor, eating cold leftovers straight from the containers. He started telling stories about high school football, his face animated by the flickering light. At some point, he leaned back, stretched his legs so they brushed against mine, and didn't move them. The silence that followed was thick, broken only by the patter of rain. I laughed nervously and asked if he was comfortable. "Yeah," he said softly, eyes unreadable, "I'm good." From then on, I noticed a subtle shift. Daniel's presence felt heavier, more deliberate. Our conversations grew longer, dipping into topics that felt too personal to share at 2 in the morning. He told me about his childhood, about fears he never voiced to anyone else. I shared things I usually kept hidden, and somewhere in that exchange, the boundaries between us began to blur. Still, I reminded myself he was straight, and I clung to that word like a warning label. But desire is rarely rational. Every time Daniel touched me, even innocently, my pulse quickened. Every shared laugh became an invitation to imagine something more. Then came the night that changed everything. It was late, the apartment unusually cold, the heater clanking uselessly as the temperature dropped. I was half asleep when I felt the mattress dip beside me. I opened my eyes to see Daniel sliding under the covers, shivering, whispering something about the cold. For a moment, I froze, unsure whether to push him away or let him stay. His body was warm against mine, his breathing steady as he settled in like it was the most natural thing in the world. I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, my heart hammering in my chest. It might have been innocent. It might have been nothing. But in that moment, with Daniel's shoulder pressed against mine, I knew the line between friendship and something else had already begun to blur. And though I told myself it was harmless, I also knew deep down that nothing about this night would stay simple. When I woke the next morning, Daniel was already gone. The indentation in the mattress beside me was the only proof he had been there at all. For a few seconds, I wondered if I had dreamt the entire thing, but the faint smell of his cologne on my pillow told me otherwise. I dragged myself into the kitchen, half expecting an awkward confrontation. Instead, Daniel was leaning against the counter, sipping coffee like nothing unusual had happened. "Sleep all right?" He asked as casually as if we hadn't shared the same bed. I nodded, unsure whether to laugh it off or probe for meaning. His eyes lingered on me for just a heartbeat longer than necessary before he looked away, pretending to be fascinated by the coffee pot. That hesitation was enough to plant doubt in me. Did he remember the warmth we had shared? Or was I the only one replaying it in my mind? That night, he slipped into my bed again. This time there was no storm, no excuse. He didn't ask and I didn't protest. His arm brushed against mine, and instead of pulling away, he let it stay there. The silence was deafening, filled with unsaid words and unacknowledged feelings. My heart pounded so loudly I was afraid he might hear it. By the third night, it had become routine. Daniel would wait until the apartment was dark and quiet, then climb into my bed with the ease of someone who belonged there. We didn't speak about it during the day, but at night, everything changed. He lay closer, let his hand rest lightly against my chest, his fingers lingering as if testing boundaries. I told myself it was innocent, but the truth was obvious. These touches were deliberate. I wanted to ask him why. I wanted him to admit something, anything that would make sense of the contradiction between his words and his actions. But each time I opened my mouth, fear held me back. I was terrified of shattering whatever fragile thing was forming between us. So I let it continue, even as guilt grew inside me like a shadow. One evening, we stayed up talking long after midnight. Daniel confessed things I never thought he'd reveal. How he felt trapped by expectations, how sometimes he didn't recognize the man everyone thought he was. His voice was low, raw, stripped of its usual confidence. Listening to him, I felt closer to him than ever, as though the walls he had built for the world had been lowered just for me. When his hand found mine beneath the covers, I didn't pull away. The contact was soft, tentative, yet charged with a current that made my chest tighten. I turned to face him, our foreheads nearly touching in the dark. For a moment, I thought he would kiss me. He didn't, but the possibility hung in the air, more powerful than any words could have been. The secrecy of it all began to weigh on me. During the day, Daniel laughed with friends on the phone, spoke about women he found attractive, carried on the performance of being exactly who everyone expected him to be. And then at night, he was someone entirely different, someone whose touch lingered too long, whose breathing grew shallow when our bodies brushed under the blankets. I began to wonder if I was complicit in something deeper than I had realized. If he was hiding a girlfriend, I was part of his betrayal. If he was hiding himself, I was both the keeper of his secret and the one he used to test its limits. Either way, it felt like infidelity to someone, to something, maybe even to myself. The tension built with each passing night until it became unbearable. My body longed for him, but my conscience screamed at me to stop. I wanted clarity, yet feared the truth. The push and pull tore at me, leaving me restless and consumed by desire I couldn't name out loud. Then it happened. One night, as we lay side by side, Daniel shifted closer until our noses nearly touched. His hand cupped the back of my neck, his thumb brushing against my skin in a way that left no room for misinterpretation. For a suspended moment, the world shrank to nothing but the two of us, breathless and trembling in the dark. And then his lips grazed mine, hesitant, fleeting, but undeniably real. The line we had both pretended didn't exist was finally crossed, and there was no turning back. The kiss was brief, almost accidental, yet it detonated inside me like an explosion I had been bracing for all along. Daniel pulled back immediately, eyes wide, his breathing uneven. For a heartbeat, neither of us moved. The air between us felt heavy, charged with the undeniable truth that what had just happened could not be undone. He started, then stopped, pressing a hand to his forehead. His usual confidence was gone, replaced by something raw and unsettled. I wanted to tell him it was all right, that he didn't need to explain. But silence felt safer than words, and so we lay there in the dark, pretending sleep might erase what we had crossed into. Morning, however, was merciless. Daniel avoided my gaze as we made coffee, his hands trembling slightly as he poured. He spoke in fragments, half sentences about work, about errands, anything but the kiss. For the first time since moving in, I felt like an intruder in my own home. The days that followed were tense, fragile. Sometimes he acted as though nothing had happened, laughing at my jokes, leaving his shoes by the couch, sitting beside me on the sofa, as though routine might hold us together. Other times he withdrew completely, speaking only when necessary, his eyes darting away whenever I looked too closely. The inconsistency left me reeling. I couldn't decide which was worse, his denial or his closeness. At night, though the pattern returned, he still came to my bed, still slid under the covers with that unspoken assumption of belonging. Only now, the air between us burned hotter, more dangerous. Our touches grew bolder, his hand resting on my waist, my fingers brushing against his arm. We kissed again, longer this time, neither of us pretending it was an accident. But the intimacy carried a weight I couldn't ignore. Each moment with him felt stolen, hidden in shadows neither of us dared to bring into daylight. I found myself questioning everything. Was I just an experiment to him? A secret indulgence he could tuck away once the lights came on? Or was there something genuine in the way his hands lingered, the way his voice softened when he whispered my name? One evening, after another kiss that left me dizzy, Daniel sat up abruptly, his face pale. "We can't keep doing this," he said. His voice cracked, betraying the conflict raging inside him. "It's not right. This isn't me." The words stung more than I expected. I wanted to shout, to demand why he kept coming back, if it wasn't him, why he reached for me in the dark, if he wasn't searching for something real. But instead, I swallowed the anger, the hurt, and simply asked, "Then what are we?" He didn't answer. His silence said more than words ever could. The following days were a blur of distance. He avoided me, left the apartment for long stretches, returned late at night, only to retreat to his own room. The absence was worse than the confusion. I realized then that I had allowed myself to believe in a version of him that maybe never existed, a man who could bridge the gulf between his public life and the truth we live behind closed doors. When we finally spoke again, it was brief. He muttered something about boundaries, about mistakes, about moving forward like none of it had happened. I nodded, though my chest felt hollow. There was nothing left to say. Looking back, I don't know if what we shared was love, lust, or something trapped in between. All I know is that it carried the weight of infidelity, not just to the women Daniel claimed to desire, but to the identities we each clung to. He betrayed the image of himself he showed the world, and I betrayed my own hope that secrecy could ever grow into something honest. The memory of him climbing into my bed still lingers with me. The warmth, the closeness, the stolen kisses, they are both beautiful and bitter, a reminder of how fragile desire can be when it hides in the dark. In the end, Daniel never gave me clarity. He only gave me silence, and I learned that sometimes silence is the loudest betrayal of all.